Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, and welcome into another duly noted podcast presented by our great friends at Titan MRI. Really good friends. Was over there the other day, as I said, and I've got a displaced tendon. I don't know what they're going to do about that. That's not up to them. It's up to my hand doctor. So we're going to have a good show for you today. Again, we're coming to you from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios, not Spurs. We'll be back at Spurs hopefully on Tuesday. Just quickly, I know you guys are sick of hearing about my jury duty Monday, and I don't expect it to be an OJ jury where I'm going to be there for months, but I'm planning for the worst case scenario, which is I'm there a long time. Could be I'm in there and out in an hour or half an hour, 10 minutes. I don't know. But if we don't have a show on Tuesday, you know that why. Okay. Today we'll be joined by Dan Wolken, who is a great columnist for USA Today, national columnist, really loves his college football. We'll talk to him about all the weirdness that is going on in the game right now, and there is plenty of it. So let's go ahead and have a show today, and then we'll find out if we have a show next week. And if we do have a show Tuesday, Coach Spurrier will be back and join us. So I look forward to that. I'm sure he's got a lot to talk about. Let's start off with our process service of Gainesville starting 5. Dun, 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 dun. Number 1 is the story of all the realignment. And look, it is what it is. It's great for people who need stuff to write about, okay, for columnists and everything like that. It's great because, let's face it, like I say, there's no good stories ever come out of training camp. It's just bad news that comes out. So you want to have something to write about that's fun to write about. And this is, because it keeps getting more fun. And the latest being, of course, FSU's president coming out and going, well, we're leaving the ACC. We just don't know when. We don't know where we're going. We don't know when. But we got some ideas and some plans. But we're out. We don't want to be around this. We're not. And I don't know if it's, in a way, it feels like a woman who walks into a bar with a low-cut dress and says, "Yeah, I look pretty good," and people are trying to decide whether to invite her out or invite her for a date, and they kind of look and well, now it's 2 a.m. and you may need to invite her. FSU is a name brand. There's no doubt about it. I know Gator fans don't want to hear what FSU is, but I looked up the numbers for the last 3 years. FSU's right there with Florida, same number of people watching their games. And this is during a time when both programs have been bad, and they're still in the top 10 or 11, 12, right in that area in terms of, number of people who watch their games. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to get FSU. Clemson is another one that's right there. Some of the other ones the names that are being dropped around, don't make a lot of sense to me. Arizona, for example. But again, not everybody's after programs for what they can do in football. Like what I know Florida people probably don't want FSU to be, and even though they play them every year, I think there's this perception that Florida can vote against FSU and keep them out. There's no truth to that. I have checked this out with the person who would know. There is no truth to that. However, I do know this too, that the SEC presidents, or not presidents, ADs, had a conference call yesterday or today, Thursday, and it didn't come up. Florida State did not come up. They aren't worried about Florida State. They're trying to do this thing the right way with these 2 teams that are coming in, okay, in Oklahoma and Texas. And they're not worried about, and again, this is something that I was told by somebody who, a different person, but somebody who really knows what they're talking about. And it made a lot of sense to me, and that is this. It's not enough if you can show, hey, we can generate, additional revenue so that you can be able to still give whatever you were given before to everybody, and the pie doesn't get diminished. That's meaningless. You better be able to generate extra revenue so the pie will get bigger. And not only the pie gets bigger, but the pieces get bigger. If the pieces don't get bigger, nobody wants you. I'm sorry. Well, somebody may want you, but the SEC is not going to want you. They don't want to bring in a school that can't make the pieces of the pie bigger. There's no point. You've got 16 schools. You're fine. You've got a great situation. You're the preeminent conference. No matter, I know the Big Ten makes more money. SEC wins more championships, especially in football. So we'll see how that all does work out. It is kind of crazy. But again, like I said, if you can't make the pie bigger, no, people are not going to want you. Bigger conferences aren't going to, the better the conference, the less they're going to want you. We'll see what happens. Like I said, earlier today, I was talking to somebody. By the time you guys are listening to this, the Pac-12 may be dead. It may be done. And I think it's heading that way either way. Let's get to number 2 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5. And that is the NCAA, the D1 Council, of which Linda Teeler is the chairman. And, of course, she is a assistant athletic director at Florida and does a lot. I mean, everybody looks at her, and I think, and they go, oh, she's a women's AD. No, she does a lot. She does the basketball scheduling. I think she may do baseball, too. But she does men's basketball scheduling. So, I mean, she does a lot over there. And she's really good with the legal stuff. And that's her main forte. And she's a wonderful human being, too. That's her main forte. My point is, she is the head of this committee, and they came out with a recommendation that they want to have contracts for NIL so that everybody has the same contract. We'll see how that can work out. I mean, it's a good idea. This is what should have been done 5 years ago, where you come up with an idea and you can enforce it. I think it's out of the bag right now. We'll talk to Dan Wolken about that a little bit later from USA Today about what he thinks about whether that is a possible idea or not. I don't think it is. But we'll see if it is. All right, number 3. This is just an amazing story to me on our process service of Gainesville starting 5. 7 athletes involved in gambling situation up in Iowa and Iowa State players. One of them's a football player, quarterback. He's taken the year off to fight this. Mom's name was used for one of the people. And this is a problem that, look, I understand it is so very hard for everybody to deal with. To have go walk into your locker room and go, hey, see that on you're wearing a Caesar's Palace arm insignia there, but you can't gamble. If you gamble, you could be ineligible. So don't gamble. Oh, DraftKings, by the way, is going to be on our all of our towels, but don't gamble. It's I guess it's hypocritical, but more than anything, it's just I don't know where the answer is. To let gambling in was they were let in to get more money involved. It's always about money, guys. You know that as well as I do. So to get more money available for the schools and the programs, they let gambling advertise, and gambling became more and more obviously legal all over. I think 38 states you can gamble in now, and maybe somewhere around there. But then you have the other situation where if a player goes, hey, I'm going to bet on this, and you can't bet on anything. Not only can you not bet on your team, you can't bet on anybody's team, and you can't certainly not bet about your teammates from your college. So if you want to bet on an Iowa State tennis match because you know that this is where you inside information, you just can't get to that point. It's a shame that this is going on, but this is predictable. We all saw this coming. Number 4 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5. I saw this thing on ESPN. I thought it was pretty interesting. They were listing, and again, we're still in that when we call it talking season. Talking season lasts until the first ball goes up in the air. Okay, toe meets leather. You see it going up in the air, end over end, or I think the story that Otis Boggs once got a letter or a dressing down from a professor at UF saying the ball technically goes end under end, not end over end. They had a big argument about that, but end under end kick. Until that happens, though, We're still in talking season. So guys are coming. I mean, I listened to a lot of these shows, and one of them was they were talking about the Barbie movie, and they were talking about vacations and stuff like that, and I get it. You're trying to kill time. I mean, we do it on the tailgate sometimes. We get talking about movies because there's no games to talk about yet. We can talk about future games, but really, do you want to talk about them yet? No. You want them to get here. So that's what's happened. So ESPN had this thing: 17 teams that can make the playoffs. Almost all of them are the teams you would expect. Almost all of them. In fact, all but 2 of them have won 10 games last year. That's pretty much what they're going by. The 2 that didn't win were 10 games, were Oklahoma, who went 6-7 and played pretty well against FSU. Probably should have won that game, kind of blew it. But still, I mean, they still won 6 games last year, as did Florida. And Wisconsin, which went 7-6, and their quarterback left. And now he's here. But, they think they'll be good. I don't know I don't see Wisconsin or Oklahoma making the playoffs. I think Oklahoma's going to be a little bit overrated. People are going, it can't happen again. He's done a good job with the portal. He's done that. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe he's not a good coach, a good head coach. I'm not saying he isn't. Venables might be a fine head coach, and one day we may talk about how great a coach he was. And I'm just saying, maybe he's not. Sometimes you don't know until they get in the job whether they can do the job. He won 6 games his first year. Good. It's not a lot of games, but we'll see what he does the rest of the way. Finally, number 5, I did notice this story today on the process service. I didn't notice it on the process service of Gainesville starting 5, but now I will notice it on there because it's on the starting 5. And that is the news out of Utah that Cam Rising is practicing, but he's limited. And now I immediately did the math in my brain, what little brain I have. 4 weeks until they play, right? Thursday, 4 weeks. Plenty of time to get healthier. Now, Cam Rising, for those of you who don't know, in the Rose Bowl, tore his ACL. They wouldn't talk about it. They would never say what it was. But they've said, yeah, he tore his ACL. And those can take a year to come back from. But medicine's a lot better now. You can come back in 9 months, 8 months. I think he'll be back. Here's the thing. I think he'll be healthy, but will he be sharp? And that is a reason why you may see at some point, like let me put it this way. This again is why players can't gamble. Let's say you're a player at Utah and you're like, did you see Rising today, man? He landed awkwardly and he swelled up. They had to ice him down. I don't know if he's going to be okay. Oh, let me go bet on Florida. Well, maybe you don't do it, but maybe you tell somebody and he tells somebody in the lunch line and they tell somebody and all of a sudden it's out there. So we'll see what happens. But it is newsworthy that Cam Rising is limited in practice right now. So we'll see how that holds up as we go forward. It's going to be an interesting football season. And it starts right away with that big game in Dublin. Notre Dame versus Navy. I can't wait for tonight, because tonight I get to watch an NFL preseason game that nobody's going to play in. Yay! Can't wait, but I will watch, again, toe meat leather. You have to watch, it's a rule. You have to watch the start of the season. Okay. All right, so that is our process service of Gainesville starting 5. We'll be back with our special guest, Dan Wolken, the national columnist for USA Today. Ought to be fun. And I think, Tom Luganbill and Dan Wolken today really I know he will again. Those guys just knock the ball out of the park when you have them as guests. They're so good, and I hope you guys appreciate it. We will have some other athletes still coming in, but again, we don't know what the immediate future is holding. We'll be back eventually. Don't worry about it. All right, let's take a break and let's come back with Dan Wolken here. And we'll play Yes, No, Where, maybe with him as well, here on another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios.
Hi there, this is head ball coach Steve Spurrier, and I'm here with my wife Jerry and our good friend Sherry Houston, the executive director of the Ronald McDonald House Charities of North Central Florida. We're thrilled to announce that the 2-year anniversary of our restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, is coming up on August 14th. Last year, we had so much fun celebrating with everybody that we're doing it bigger and better this year. We're hosting a special dinner and celebration that will include a chef's choice of premium buffet or your favorite Spurrier Gridiron Grill menu, including a filet mignon carving station, shrimp and grits, short rib risotto, wonderful seafood options, and many dessert options also.
Like my famous chocolate chip cookies.
Proceeds being donated to the local Ronald McDonald House.
Thrilled to once again partner with Coach Jerry and the Spurrier Gridiron team to raise funds for the Ronald McDonald House, benefiting families and children experiencing medical emergencies.
Spurrier's Gridiron Grill will be donating 11% of all of our money from food and 66% of drink sales to the Ronald McDonald House.
Go to Spurriers.com right now and reserve a ticket before they sell out.
We'll have wonderful food, special guests, and a limited edition of the second year anniversary collector's coins, as well as prizes like a dinner with me and Jerry. We couldn't have become one of the busiest and most successful restaurants in the Southeast without your support. So we want to celebrate with the most important people of our team, and that's you.
I want to celebrate with some of those cookies. Do you have any of those?
Sure do. Right here for you.
Oh, thank you.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Studios. Today I'm doing it from home, and every Thursday we're pretty much doing it from the home. And it's great to welcome in Dan Wolken, who just does a great job. His columns, of course, he's a USA Today national columnist. His columns sometimes make sense of college football, but I don't know that anybody can truly make sense of what we're going through right now. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, it's a unique time, I guess, but in a way we've kind of gotten used to it because it kind of just pops up every 7-8 years like this, where we go through one of these realignment phases and everything seems like it's totally spinning into chaos. But you know, even compared to what happened in 2010, which, if you remember, started with Nebraska going to the Big Ten, and Texas and Oklahoma and a bunch of schools were on the verge of going to what was then the Pac-10. It's just, I think this is even more uncertain and nerve-wracking and disruptive than anything we've seen before. So we'll don't know how it's going to end, but it's got to make a lot of people nervous.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. We tape this on Thursday, and it's up Thursday night. But by midnight Thursday, who knows? We could have conferences that are totally look different than our usual looking. But it is what it is. But it's kind of funny, and I don't know if you ever get this from people, Dan, where they'll come up and go, "That's it. I'm done with college football. I love college football, but I can't take this anymore. NIL, realignment, transfer portal. I don't, it's like free agency. It's a wild, wild west. I'm done with it." And then, of course, Alabama plays Texas second week, and they're going, "Well, I'll watch that."
Yeah, it's the duality between what a mess the sport is from an administrative standpoint and how great it is on the field. And it's always been phenomenally entertaining once the games begin, and everybody sort of gets locked in to that instead of the politics that's going on behind the scenes. But it's from top to bottom, college football, college sports, they're in total chaos. I mean, they don't know what they're doing. They're running to Congress looking for help to maintain their business model. They've made, these arguments for years and years that people were going to stop watching if players got paid. all this stuff, and none of it's ever true.
No.
People aren't watching less college football. If anything, they're watching more college football than they've ever watched before because they love it. They can't get enough of it. But at the same time, just in terms of all the off the field stuff, these guys can't get out of their own way.
No, they can't, and it's amazing. But then the reason a lot of these problems are going on is because the NCAA did a poor job of It wasn't like they didn't know NIL and transfer portal were coming, that they were going to have to do something. They just chose not to do anything about it. And I don't know if this goes back to the same argument that a lot of people have, and I don't know if it's even a good argument would solve it, that college football needs a commissioner. And everybody says that until he rules against your school. And then they go, we don't need a commissioner. Why do we? Well, Nick Saban is like, we need a commissioner. What do you mean we lose 2 scholarships? No. Get rid of this commissioner thing.
Well, here's the problem, Pat, is whether you have a commissioner or the college football playoff or the NCAA or whatever the authoritative body is that you want to magically wave the wand and fix everything. The reality is that, even in the NFL or the NBA, the commissioner works for the owners, and the commissioner, yes, they're going to have discretion to, make certain decisions and discipline and this and that. But on all the big stuff, that's about the owners and the way they want to drive their business. And it's the same thing in college sports. It's the presidents who are making the decisions. They split off into subgroups and committees and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's run by the presidents, and they hand a certain level of authority for the day-to-day stuff off to the NCAA or to the SEC or the ACC or whoever. But ultimately, those commissioners and the NCAA president, they all work for college presidents. And in college sports, the problem is the college presidents just don't know what they're doing. And I don't mean that to
no, they've got other things to deal with.
Yeah. I'm not trying to belittle their knowledge or whatever, but like compared to a university hospital or a medical school or a law school or something like that, the college sports aspect is it pales in comparison to the overall business. Just last night, somebody I thought made a really good analogy. They're like, the job of a college president right now is almost like to be a hedge fund manager. And all that really matters is kind of growing their endowment and all that stuff. And so some who are more hands-on or who have more of a natural interest in sports than the other. But you see it all the time. If you ever talk to these types of people, they generally aren't just that like dialed in and aware of what's going on, and it's led to a series of just very bad decisions about how to run their enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that there is a way to solve the NIL problem, whether it's through Congress or through? I mean, as long as the states are going to all have different rules, it's going to be difficult to handle.
Yeah, I mean, look, the problem with NIL and that whole narrative about the states having different laws and that you can't really have that if you want to run college sports. I mean, I understand the frustration and the difficulty of saying what's allowed in one state is not allowed in another, especially what we've seen like in Arkansas and Texas and some of these other states where, frankly, the schools are asking the politicians to write laws that basically say the NCAA can't investigate them, can't punish them. It's a crazy notion. To me, it makes no sense at all. The NCAA has that authority, and they've been given that authority by the schools themselves. But at the same time, specifically when it comes to NIL, the reason it happened that way is because the NCAA did not take action to put their laws on the books. And so it naturally just evolved into this weird mess. I'm just of the belief personally, the NCAA shouldn't enforce anything when it comes to NIL. There's no way to bring that in. There's no way to police it. But the way it's happened with the collectives and everybody talking about, these crazy situations like, Jaden Rashada and all these terrible stories, the Miami booster, John Ruiz, and all the stuff that's going on there. The reason it happened is because the schools won't pay the players. The schools we've sort of collectively decided that the players need to get paid because everybody else is getting paid. So how are they doing it? They're letting the boosters do it. They're letting the fans do it. It's like they're crowdsourcing the payments instead of revenue sharing. So, okay, if that's the way you want to set up your system, well, you're going to have these problems, right? So to me, honestly, they'd be better off just not regulating it. Like if they really don't want to pay the players, if they are dead set on saying we're not going to share revenues, we're not going to make them employees, we're not going to pay the players ourselves, they should just let it go. Just let capitalism do what it does. I think a much more reasonable way to approach this would be to say, all right, we're going to make them employees. We're going to find a way to do collective bargaining. We're going to figure out the percentages and how to distribute it and all that, and get the collectives, get the boosters, get all this crap out of it. Because frankly, it should be the school's responsibility to pay them.
Yeah. Dan Wolken coming to you, of course, a columnist, the national columnist for USA Today, coming to you on the Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line. And, we heard this a little bit from some coaches out there complaining about NIL, complaining about transfer portal. And I'm like, I don't want to hear from you, the coaches. You've been in the transfer portal your whole life. You can get in it anytime you want, so don't tell me that you what you do or don't want. The reason that players have wanted money, the biggest reason they fought for it, is because look, the salaries escalated. When Steve Spurrier started getting $1 million a year at Florida, that was the first $1 million coach. And now they're hiring guys from Louisiana, for example, and giving him $7 million and all the money he needs for all the assistants, which is fine. And I understand why Florida's doing it. But and that coach hasn't really said anything about it. But if for another coach to come out and go like Pat Narduzzi and go, this transfer portal, we got to put an end to this. This is ridiculous. I'm like, well, you can transfer tomorrow if you want.
Yeah, these guys got to understand nobody cares really how difficult their job is or how hard their life is. That's what the money's for, and all of us, everybody who has a job in the year 2023 has a different job in some way than their job in 2013 and 2003 and 1993. Things evolve. Things change. We're sitting here doing this podcast, when you're older than me, but when both of us got into this business, that wasn't a thing. A podcast wasn't a thing. Well, now we're expected to do this stuff, right? So we all have to evolve and change and do things we may not be comfortable with or things we may not like because the environment has changed around us. Same thing with these coaches and with college football. And yeah, I get why it's frustrating and why there's an unsavory aspect to what they have to deal with. But the alternatives are make them employees, which the schools up to this point don't want to do, or continue to get beat in court. And there's really no other, I'm telling you, there's no other way to do it. You can say, I wish we could go back. We're not going back. That's done.
This is how old I am, Dan. When I started out in this business and I would go to a road game, you had to have 3 big suitcases with you. Suitcase for your clothes, suitcase for the telecopier, and a suitcase for the typewriter. So you'd be lugging them all around. Now, it's just like a little slim thing and got a knapsack on. So
I'm glad I missed that era. I'm glad I missed that one.
I wish I had, but it steals you a little bit. Let's talk some football because I really feel like this has got the potential to be a fun season to watch football. I'm not sure it's going to be in Gainesville, but I think it's going to be all around the country. And so as we look forward to, regardless of what happens, nobody's getting out of a conference or changing conferences this year. So we can look at this year and there are a lot of teams. I mean, I know everybody thinks Georgia is going to win it all again and rightfully so. Their schedule's easy, and they've got an unbelievable team. But it feels like there's more schools this year that have a chance, at least, to knock them off or get into the playoffs.
Yeah, obviously Georgia's going to be great because they have great players, but there is a lot of skepticism, and there should be, about 3 in a row. It's not something that's been done in a very, very long time, and we're going to find out, I think, just how much Stetson Bennett was kind of the engine of that team the last couple years. At least from what I've heard coming out of Georgia, like the quarterback play is just different. It's not going to be quite as good. That's going to impact leadership and all those other things. So they're going to have some challenges to navigate. It's an interesting season at Alabama. I think their quarterback situation is very questionable, and Nick Saban is much closer to the end than he is the beginning. And if they don't have a great year and they don't win the SEC or get into the playoff, that's going to come with its own set of questions. As the Pac-12 is kind of falling apart here, you've got actually an incredible roster of quarterbacks in that league. And, can USC fix their defense? Is Caleb Williams going to be able to go back-to-back in the Heisman Trophy race? You've got, the newcomers coming into the Big 12. While, there's a lot of hype around Texas in their last year, Oklahoma coming off a very rare bad year. And what is Brent Venables' future going to be? And then up north, I mean, a couple years ago, like, you're thinking, is Michigan ever going to beat Ohio State? And now they've done it 2 years in a row, and they're ranked ahead of Ohio State, or they're going to be ranked ahead of Ohio State in the preseason. They've got the game at home again this year. They've got a whole bunch of players, like Jim Harbaugh's talking about 20-something draft picks potentially off this team. So, like, that's, to me, super intriguing as well. So there's a lot of these sort of simmering storylines out there that I think are going to create a lot of interest as we get into the meat of the season.
Yeah, I mean, there's some teams that are. I'm not saying they're back yet, and Texas being a good example. Obviously, they're not back until they win something. And to quote Dan Lanning, what have they won? Florida State seems to be on its way back.
Yeah.
It may be back, but we don't know. Still, I mean, you look at those first 4 games. They got to play LSU in a neutral site. And then at Clemson, they could easily be 2-2 to start out the season. So who knows? But in USC, more back than they were. It feels like there's a lot of schools that are more back than they were, but they doesn't mean they're all the way back yet.
No, that's a good point. I didn't mention the ACC, and even Clemson. Clemson, they've won a bunch of games the last couple years, but there's a very clear trend that they have dipped since the national championship in 2018. And Dabo, who has been all about, Mr. Loyalty and promoting from within, well, he finally went out and got some guys from outside to run, his offense. And I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how they are different, how they've evolved with Garrett Riley there. Obviously, he made the quarterback change at the end of last year with Cade Klubnik, who certainly has potential, and that seemed like a move that was a long time coming. But, like, okay, Clemson probably going to win, at least 10 games again, maybe 11. Like, what does that mean, really, if they're not competing at the same level as Georgia?
They got to be in the playoffs. Yeah, at least. Yeah,
exactly. So, and then Florida State, like, I think you feel real good about the progress they made last year. Norvell's making some inroads in recruiting. Of course, they're making noise about, are they going to leave the ACC? And that's a whole other story, but they've got their quarterback coming back, great player, Jordan Travis. So, yeah, you have to feel good about Florida State, but that's on August 3rd. When they get finished playing LSU, what's that going to feel like,
Exactly. All right, it is time for us to play Yes, No Way, or Maybe with our guest, Dan Wolken. 3 questions. You answer them yes, no way, or maybe. You can expound on them. Number 1, you were the editor-in-chief of the Vanderbilt student newspaper, which was called The Hustler.
Yep.
No, there was no skin in any of these movies, was there? In any of these newspapers? I mean, I only knew one hustler growing up.
Yeah, well, Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt was known as the Hustler. I believe that was his nickname. So that's where the student newspaper got it from. But it's a good title. It's a good mantra because if you want to be in journalism, if you want to be a reporter, you got to hustle a little bit. So I always was very proud of being the editor of the Vanderbilt Hustler.
And you could walk into a bar on Broadway and say, "Yeah, I work for Hustler." Yeah,
exactly.
All right, number 2, LSU repeats in the West.
I'm gonna say no way. I think they're going to be very good. They're going to be really good team, but I just, it's like maybe it's just I don't know, like a reflex response or something, but I don't know. Is Alabama not going to be in the SEC championship game 2 years in a row? It's hard for me to envision that. It
is. That's the problem. I mean, it's hard to bet against Saban. It was like you could never want to bet against Belichick and Brady. They might lose a game, but don't bet against them because you're going to lose more than you're going to win. We really appreciate you. Oh, I forgot number 3 on Yes, No, Where, maybe Sunday morning. The USA beats Sweden in women's soccer.
I think no way. Like I'm not an expert on that sport, but from everything I'm reading from my colleagues, Nancy Armour and Lindsay Snell, who are covering it really well, and from other people who are dialed into the women's soccer scene, it just seems like this U.S. team just doesn't have it. They don't have the firepower, the offensive skill, whatever, the coaching, whatever it is. I think Sweden's got to go in as the favorite there.
Yeah, and you know what they also don't have? They don't have me getting up at 5 a.m. to watch them. If that was at 7 a.m., I'd make myself get up. But 5 a.m. and certainly the 3 a.m.s don't do them any good either. Dan, always great talking to you, man. I appreciate you taking the time, and it's always good. I'll let you go on a last note. Can you believe what's happened around here? I mean, you know the Gators when they were unbelievable, and that's why they're doing a Netflix thing on them later this month because they were unbelievable. But 6-7. I think Billy Napier's got to go in the right direction, but it's gonna be a longer road than I think some people like.
Yeah, I think what we found out, and maybe people just didn't realize it or forgot about it because you had 2 kind of all-time great coaches, not exactly back to back. The Zook era was in between, but that was such a long stretch. I think people maybe forgot that Florida's not one of those kind of automatic places. Now, there's every right to believe that Florida should be good. You look at the talent and the location and all of that stuff, but it's not an automatic. You got to fight at Florida to get kids from the I-4 corridor, from South Florida. You're fighting a lot of competition, not just in state, but out of state. They're not going to go to the Gators just because, like, you really do have to work at it. Florida got behind in facilities. You've been over that ad nauseum. So you don't make a great hire at Florida, you can be pretty mediocre. And I think that's well established at this point. So, we'll see if Napier is the one who can bring it back.
Yep. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Dan, again, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast, and we'll talk to you down the road, okay, when we got some games that we can talk about, okay?
All right, Pat. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dan Wolken, head columnist, national columnist for USA Today, does a great job. Very opinionated, has great opinions, too. We'll be back with more of another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI. from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Studios.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Process Service of Gainesville offers a rapid turnaround on affidavits of service for Gator lawyers locally and nationwide. Our friend Scott Hart offers immediate responses on status requests and is a member of NAPS and FAPS. And he has been a part of the community for almost 2 decades. Need service? Call Process Service of Gainesville at 407-697-9592 or email shartgators, that's G8TR, at yahoo.com. And make sure you ask about the Paralegal Legal Secretary Bonus Program. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What would give you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where, everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this, streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Doing it from home today. We're doing it that way on Thursdays, and we'll see how it goes during the season. We're still trying to figure a few things out, but I'm enjoying doing it like this because this way I don't have to kill an hour. When I get done, I can watch a little TV and then go, instead of like wandering around the mall. Not even the mall, the Celebration Point Mall, which is like 4 places. So not much to do right now. There will be as more things come in, though. There's no doubt about it. All right, let us get to our Swamp Games of the Weekend. And of course, the Swamp Restaurant. You'll love it over there. Special Saturday sangrias coming your way. Man, that's a good way to cool down because right now it is hot. I played 9 holes yesterday and got a little dizzy, but not too bad. Just a little dizzy from the heat. It was pretty brutal. And then of course it rains, and it's hot again, and it's rain. It is what it's. You know what it is? Gainesville. That's what it is. It's Gainesville. All right. So our Swamp Games of the Weekend. Let's start off with soccer. Sweden against the United States. Knockout round. Got to win. 5 a.m. Sunday on Fox. My feeling about this is that I think maybe the U.S. is not. I think they're going to get their poop together. Okay. I just have a feeling about it. I don't know much about women's soccer, and I know how to cover it. I've covered the national championship when Florida won it, but I don't know. I hope they do, I guess. I will say this. If I wake up at 6 this morning, which sometimes happens, rather than go back to sleep, I will come out here and watch it. Okay. So I'll watch it. Then we'll talk about that as well. Okay. So that's 5 a.m. on Sunday. So that'd be Sunday morning. Yeah. Cool. You don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. on Sunday for anything, do you? No. But I will try. I will make an effort. Let's put it that way. Okay, next week. Okay, we know we have the game tonight, but if you're listening, it's probably Friday, so I understand that. So we'll give you the games for next Thursday night, and both of them are on the NFL Network. And they are at 7:00. Houston at New England. Now again, first exhibition game, preseason game, whatever you want to call it. It's not exactly blow you away, but I'm curious to see what Houston's putting together down there. I'm curious to see what New England looks like. And then at 10:00, you have Minnesota at Seattle. Again, curious. Not going to find out a lot, but it's still football. It's live football being played between two football teams. Those are on Thursday. On Friday, the Bucs at Detroit, 6:40 is on Apple Plus. Apple Plus now becoming a big player in sports, and that's who the Pac-12 got their deal with. Again, not a big fan of those things. I do watch them, but I don't like them for sports because when you get it, and once you get them on there, you're kind of stuck being on there. With my 2 TV setup, it works okay, but it is a little bit more difficult. Then what else do we have? Oh, we have a lot of baseball this weekend. Actually, I think that was baseball, Tampa Bay and Detroit. So let's back up here a minute. 6:40, Apple Plus, Thursday. Tampa Bay at Detroit. Sorry. If you wrote these things out a little more legibly, you could figure it out. Also Friday, Houston at the Yankees, 7:05. Kansas City at Philly, 7:05. Both those games are on the Plus as well. I think they're on ESPN Plus. Saturday, also on FS1, the Dodgers in San Diego. Actually, that's Sunday. Not Saturday. Saturday game. That's it. Well, I'm getting all this screwed up, aren't I? No, that is the Saturday game at 4:10 on ESPN Plus. Atlanta, Chicago is a 2:20 game on ESPN Plus. Okay, FS1 has LA. You guys are probably going, I don't want to know who's playing because you can't get it right. So what's the point? That's a good point. So, I do know the Dodgers and Padres are playing on ESPN Sunday night at 7. And I do know that soccer has their first match of the year. Florida soccer coming up at 3:00 on Sunday. It's an exhibition match against Georgia Southern. So there you have that. Boy, I screwed that up, really. All right, let's get to our Adams Ribco to go Gators of the week. And obviously not a lot to choose from right now. But I went with all the guys who are on the watch list. And they're watch lists for everything. And they don't mean anything. Diddly poo, but you got on them. So that means you did something. You must have been good enough to make your coaches, because believe me, this is what happens. They want to put a guy on a watch list. Who do you have from your school that you think ought to be on the watch list? Let me check with coach. Let's put ETN on there. Okay, let's put ETN on there. A lot of that goes on. I'm not just saying all of them go that way, but Crawshaw, Pearsall, Derek Wingo, ETN, all on watch list. Good for you. You get nothing for it, but it's good that you made it still. You're the Gators of the week. So you got that going for you. You got 2 awards in 1 week, and mine counts. The other ones don't mean anything. Let's get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. And we had a lot of people get in last week, and of course, waiting for the result of the game tonight as well. Let's get to the game, and that will be Houston at New England. Is that the game? Houston at New England. I again, having a hard time reading things. That is the game next Thursday night. So next Thursday night is when that game will be played, and go ahead and pick a winner. That's all you have to do. Houston at New England, preseason football, flip a coin. That's all that really matters. I did notice that all the spreads for week 1 are out. They're all like 2 and 3 points, which you would expect, but it's kind of interesting. Well, I can't wait till we get to a point where we got multiple games to pick from. I'm looking forward to that. For our Leonardo's quick picks. Let's get to our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. We always love Hesser and Kipke. And of course, it's a Gainesville law firm specializing in the area of workers' compensation and family law. Ken and Jennifer take great pride in their one-to-one focus on each and every client they represent. Ken is board certified. and workers' compensation law by the Florida Bar, while Jennifer possesses extensive jury trial experience with a nearly 20-year background as a prosecutor. Don't believe me? Check out their 5-star Google reviews. There's a ton of them up there, or set an appointment at hklawfl.com. Better yet, give them a call, 352-339-9920, Hesser and Kipke. Let's get to the three things. I mentioned softball. Don't forget, I know we all talk about football, and that's, I know football runs everything, but volleyball coming up. SEC champion volleyball. They're coming up, and I want to make sure I include them. They have 2 matches in Tampa on the 25th and 26th. One of them's an exhibition, one of them's real deal. I think and then after that, they go to Stanford and then play Minnesota at home. So tough schedule, as she always does. Mary Wise does a great job of that. So don't forget volleyball and support them, because they deserve it. Because, I mean, we're talking about conference champions, and the other one went 3-5. So I'm just saying. I'm a big Mary Wise fan. Okay, number 2 on Hesser and Kipke's three things. The sale went through on Michael Jordan giving up the Charlotte Hornets, and he said he was proud of what they were able to do there. Overall record for the Charlotte Hornets during that time, 423. That's a lot of wins, 423 wins, and 600. That's a lot more losses. It's 137 or 167 losses more than you won. So, I mean, look, it is good what they did downtown there. It's good what they were able to do in Charlotte. I mean, to make that city even more dynamic. I really like it there, to be honest with you. So that part of it, yeah. But you can't be proud of what you put on the court every night. Nah, wasn't good. Okay, and finally, number 3 on Hesser and Kipke, three things. I just found out that I'm speaking. Well, I knew I was speaking over in Destin. Hopefully, I'm done with jury duty by then. And it's a couple of weeks from now on the 16th. And they always get a Florida coach from some sport, whichever sport it is. It's always great. Sometimes it's Jenny Rowland. It was Mouse one year, and I do a little Q&A, and it's really cool with them. And Sully one year. This year, Tim Walton. I'm looking forward to that one. That'll be fun. I mean, obviously, things did not go well for Tim Walton last year. He wasn't happy. He's made a lot of changes, really delved into the transfer portal, has a great class coming in, changed coaches. Francesco and Anea now on the staff. That's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to that. And if you live over in that area, the Destin area, it's a great group of people. I have a great time. They have it at Harry T's every year upstairs. They have the whole upper deck. And it's kind of an interesting place to give a speech, because people go by and they honk those horns really loud when they're out there in the bay, and you have to kind of, okay, all right. Yeah, we see you out there. We're trying to do a speech here. But anyway, it's good. I love doing it. I've been doing it for, I want to say, like 21 years, going out to the Panhandle and speaking. And actually, the week after that, Jeff Cardozo will be speaking at the Pensacola Club, which I usually do, but we're only doing one this year. So that'll be in a couple of weeks. All right. Appreciate them for having me. I really do. All right. That's our Hesser and Kipke three things. Let's get to this, that, and the other. This, that, and the other, as always, is brought to you by the great folks at Ballyhoo, where we had a great meal the other night, Karen and I, by the great folks at Shackhow Insurance. That's where you go for all your insurance needs. And of course, Ironwood Golf Course, where I did play yesterday again. I need to play more courses, I think. I love playing out there, though. I just know the course so well, and yet the score doesn't reflect it. I'm really down on my game. And I was so down on my game about 4 holes in yesterday, and then I hit 3 straight greens where I had 12-foot birdie putt. I'm like, okay, you're all right, man. It's okay. How many did I make of those 3? 0. Yes, 0. 0.0. Fat, dumb, and stupid is no way to go through life. But I'm trying it anyway. All right, this, that, and the other. This was, remember, just a couple of years, was just a year ago, when the SEC at 8 Media Days, the bomb exploded all of a sudden Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC. And at first, when you hear it, you go, no, they aren't. Who's making this story up? Is Joe Shad back on the beat? No, it was true. And we've all been freaking out ever since and trying to figure some things out. That was the this. That was in the Big Ten said, well, we're not going to sit here on our butts. Let's go get 2 teams, UCLA, USC. They end up getting them. They answer the Big Ten, or they answer the SEC. The Big Ten does, and they probably, I don't know that they did better. I don't think they did, but they did about as good, and certainly locking up that California area. But who'd have known that Colorado leaving the Pac-12 would have started off this incredible chain reaction. It's just unbelievable what's going on. But it was Colorado, which, as Dan Lanning said, hasn't won anything. They leave, and I'm like going, who cares? And they're not counting on Deion being there a long time, are they? And all of a sudden, it's going crazy. It's nuts. What's going on? Everything's up for grabs. Where's Notre Dame going? I don't know. It's wild. But who'd have thought it would be Colorado moving from one conference to another that would set all this off? Anyway, that is this, that, and the other. Again, brought to you by Ironwood, by Ballyhoo Restaurant, and by our good friends at Darshak Insurance. Let's finish with Pat Dooley's story time. I was actually texting back and forth with, or actually emailing back and forth with Mike Jordan from Eastlake Pediatrics, who sponsors Pat Dooley's story time. We were having a lively discussion about music. Let's just put it that way. And he was probably right and I was wrong. I didn't even know what I said last week. I got to figure out what I said. I said something about The Cure, but I don't know what it was. Sometimes I forget everything. All right, Pat Dooley story time. I did tell you one Hall of Fame story, and since it's Hall of Fame weekend, I'm going to tell you another one. And this is the year that I went with Zonka, who, of course, was the Jacksonville Bulls general manager, so they sent me up there with him. And the great thing was, he said he's part of the official party, Pat Dooley. So I got to go everywhere. It's the only time I ever got to go to the banquet, which was nothing special, but it was just stars and everywhere. You were just, I don't even know if I ate. I just watched people, oh my God, did that. So you start with that, you get treated well, you get obviously parties that they throw, and I get to go to all of them because I'm part of Zonka's official party. And it was great, And then I get to go to the game. I'm getting ready to go to the game, and it's the Niners and somebody. I can't remember who they were playing. And they go, oh, no, Mr. Dooley, you don't need to take a cab. We have a special shuttle for members of the party. So I get on the party. There are players on the party. Steve Young's sitting next to me. And as I sit down next to him, he goes, why do I know you? And I'm like, well, I know you don't remember this, but a couple of years ago, when you were with the Los Angeles Express, you and I did an interview with you on the field at halftime. We sat on the bleachers. He goes, Pat, is it Dooley? I go, yeah, how do you remember that? But he did. He remembered me. That was cool. Pretty cool. So I kind of became a Steve Young fan from that day. But anyway, that's the only way to go to the Hall of Fame, is to get treated like a VIP. And I was able to do that. So that's one of my favorite Pat Dooley story times. That's going to do it for this show. We appreciate everybody, especially Dan Wolken, for coming in. Again, we'll let you know Tuesday there'll either be a show. If there is going to be a show, I will put it on Twitter and Facebook and let everybody know that there is. If there's not, I don't know if I'll have time to be able to do it. I don't know what's going on. I've only been on jury duty once in my life. It lasted the day, and then we convicted and then we got out. But that's not why we convicted. It was open and shut case. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I know you're worried about me. All right, we will be back though at some point. I know that. Until then, I am Pat Dooley. I am deep for Zach, by the way. I am deep way back, and I am out of here.